Hi, in the first episode of Modeling Wiz, I told you that financial modeling is essentially a mathematical representation of a financial phenomenon such as a business or a financial contract. In the next episode, I talked about how sometimes the models we build actually fail to represent the underlying business correctly. And in this video, I'm going to elaborate on this a little further. The role of a model, be it in the fashion industry, design and architecture, or science, or any other field for that matter, is to help us visualize the underlying phenomenon so that the same could be properly understood or studied further. So similarly, if you're building a financial model for a business, the main role of the model is to help us visualize the business, albeit in an abstract numerical sense. But sometimes we end up focusing too much on forecasting the financial statement that we end up failing to visualize the business correctly. I am going back to the revenue model of the Neo Cafe that we saw last time to explain this issue a little further. So if a cafe sells 4 types of beverages, then the total sales of the cafe should be equal to the sum of the sales of individual beverages. Mathematically, there is nothing wrong in that. And that's what this model also does. If you look at the model studies the growth of the 4 products and accordingly arrives at a growth rate for next year. Using the growth rate, it arrives at forecast for each of the 4 products, and the total sales is arrived as sum of the 4 products. Now on the face of it, it looks absolutely right. I have the revenue for next year, which can then flow into my income statement forecast, and I can create a full-fledged model using that. But what's wrong about this? For a moment, let's assume that you frequent a cafe, and in that cafe you have your own favorite beverage. Let's say cold coffee. But one day when you visit the cafe, the store manager tells you that they have significantly improved their cold chocolate product and that you should give it a try. Now what would happen if you indeed shift to cold chocolate? The sales of cold chocolate would go up, but that's going to come at the cost of cold coffee, which would see its sales going down. So the overall increase in sales will not be the same as increase in cold chocolate. But is that what our model tells us? Let's relook at the model. Let us say the entrepreneur is now thinking about improving the cold chocolate business, and she believes that if that happens, then the cold chocolate business would actually see a 4% positive growth instead of a minus 3% growth. If she were to input this in a revised estimate, what does the model tell us? The model shows us that instead of the sales going down by 3, it's going to improve by 4. And that's a net difference of positive 7. But unfortunately, the model tells us that the same positive 7 would also be there in the overall sales. But just a minute back, we discussed that that's not how it's going to happen. The other products are actually going to see decline in sales. But this model does not tell anything of that sort. So, if the entrepreneur were to use this model for decision making, she is most likely going to be led the wrong way, isn't it? In fact, if you speak to more seasoned analysts, they would say in this particular case, it would be better to express your revenue as a function of number of customers and average revenue per customer. That at least tells us very clearly that if your sales has to improve, either you have to find more customers or you should have your existing customers spend more. But what if I do not have customers' data? In that case, I cannot express my sales as a function of customers. In that case, is it okay to go back to the product-based forecast that we already have? I would still say no. If you don't have customer data, then look for a closer proxy for it. If I need to get customers, then I need to have tables for them. So maybe I can express my sales as a function of number of tables and revenue per table. So for big chains like Starbucks, you would notice that analysts actually express their sales as a function of number of restaurants and revenue per restaurant. So that way it is clear that if your sales has to increase, either expand your network or find ways for your existing network to generate more sales for you. So what is your key takeaway from this video? Rather than I answering that, I'm going to leave you with a question. If you are going to build a financial model from scratch the next time and you're looking at the annual report of the company, what are the first few things that you should go through? So think about it and drop your views and comments, and I'll answer that in a couple of days. I'll also meet you sometime next week with a video on framing the right mathematical equations. And until then, take care and see you.